What is up, everybody? We are rolling audio here today on episode 15 of The Harder Show. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, hitting that play button. Hope you are having an absolutely awesome weekend so far. I hope you had an awesome St. Paddy's Day. Hopefully the festivities continued into the weekend a little bit for you, but hopefully you're not feeling too hungover on this Sunday morning here. So, what's going on? Well, I got to thank everybody because episode 14 of The Harder Show was kind of a cool episode. I talked about a bunch of local bands, and the feedback has been amazing for it. The support, the sharing, everything like that. It's really been overwhelming. I figured it might be kind of a cool topic, and I figured it'd be a popular episode, but I didn't think it would get quite the reaction it did. All the bands I mentioned, they all shared it and everything, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you guys all so much for doing that. Y'all know who you are. It's been such an amazing thing. Got a few new fans out of it and listeners for the podcast, so thank you guys so much. I did that podcast for the bands. I didn't do that to get more followers or anything, but it never hurts when stuff like that happens. So I am so grateful. Thank you guys so much. It's just awesome. I'm just over the moon about it. So I figured kind of continuing on with the topic of music and bands, figured I'd talk about something that is it's a pretty big deal for me. And that is me talking about gear and guitars. Now, if I was going to sit here and talk about just music gear and things like that in general, this would be a 3-parter. So what I figured I'd do today for fun is talk about my guitars, my past guitars, how many guitars I've had, the guitars I currently have, the ones that got away, I just figured that might be something kind of fun to do. I always loved talking guitars with customers at the shop, and whenever I hang out with someone, usually at some point guitars gets brought up in conversation. So I figured this might be something kind of fun to do, and I have had quite a few guitars for someone of my age. Slowed down a lot the last few years, last 5 years or so, but at one point, from the time I was about, I'd say 16 to say 18 or 19, I had a lot of guitars. So figured this could be something kind of fun. Obviously, this is strictly a music kind of gear related episode. So for anyone who is not into that kind of thing, I appreciate you listening so much, obviously. And it's kind of an entertaining thing for me to talk about some of the stories of acquiring these guitars and stuff. But this is more for the gearheads. So let's dive into it. So starting off, my guitar journey. I started to play guitar. Well, I started trying to play guitar when I was in grade 6. I had my teacher, awesome guy by the name of Mr. Jack. Awesome dude. If anyone knows him, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He's a musician, and he kind of was doing he played piano and guitar, and so he was kind of teaching some of the students how to play guitar. I think he was doing a bit of piano as well. I can't recall, but definitely guitar. And I was like, I want to learn how to play guitar. So I went home and I begged my parents to buy me a guitar. They knew it was a phase thing, but they went out and bought me a little 3/4 size one. I don't recall the brand or anything, but it was just a little 3/4 size one. And I just didn't pick it up. I just sucked. So after that year went, that summer I didn't pick it up once. Heading into grade 7, I think they sold it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's the end of that. I'm not meant to be a guitar player. So fast forward a few years later, in grade 9, I meet my good friend, Mr. Brandon Bowden. I had my hanging out episode with him a couple episodes ago. You guys go back and listen to that if you want to hear about kind of our journeys and our stories and adventures together and so forth. But my guitar playing journey did start with him. I think I talked about it in podcast in his podcast, but just quickly tell the story again. Basically, Brandon played guitar, and when me and him started hanging out, we were both big music guys, of course. Now, I didn't take music in high school, which was just, I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. I try not to have any, but the one regret I do have is that I never took music in high school. And don't ask why. I will get into that in another podcast. Hanging out with him, went into his house and I saw his guitars and he's sitting there playing and I'm like, oh man, the guy used to play, and I'm sitting there trying to pick around and stuff, and I didn't know shit, but I just went, man, like, I want to play guitar again. I want to form a band, you know? So I went home that night and said to my mom, I said, I want to play guitar. And she's like, we already tried this and you didn't do it. And I'm like, oh, but no, like, seriously, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I begged them and begged them and begged them and begged them and begged them for months and months to buy me a guitar. And finally, that Christmas, I don't remember exactly what Christmas it was, but they bought me it was a Zeller's Special, a Ashbury acoustic guitar. And I still have that guitar to this day. I'm looking at it right now, actually. It's just kind of a basic steel string acoustic guitar, natural finish. Really nice tone to it, actually. The Ashbury stuff. Near the end, they kind of got crappy, but this one in particular was really, really nice. A couple of my buddies who know the guitar, they've played it and they go, wow, like, this is a Zeller's guitar? Like, this is really nice. And they're always really surprised. I'm like, yeah, it's just a Zeller's guitar, you know, but it's awesome. So really good stuff. If anyone's ever looking for a cheap starter, the Ashbury stuff is wicked. So I played the crap out of that guitar. I still play it once in a blue moon too. I've got it strung up with some nice strings and that, and I'll pick it up just to kind of, for nostalgia's sake. It was the guitar I kind of, cut my teeth on, so it's definitely big sentimental value for that guitar. And as time went on, I started kind of picking around a little bit, and actually, I didn't have a tuner for the guitar, so it was always out of tune, and I would try and learn songs, and my parents would be like, oh, that's so good, And it wasn't until I got a tuner that I learned how to tune the guitar. And then I'm sitting there one night, I think I was playing like Enter Sandman. And I think my dad was walking down the hall and he's like, I recognize that. That's the Metallica song, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, cool. Like, you can actually play that thing. Because it sounded like crap whenever I'd try and play anything because it was out of tune. So it's kind of funny there. I saw stuff like that happen all the time at the shop too. It always would break my heart. I'd see a kid trying to play something on his guitar or something, or if there was a guitar he picked up and it's out of tune or something. Like, there's nothing worse. So I always tried to help kids out with that. But so after playing, I want to say it was a few months, I decided to go out with some birthday money and buy a brand new acoustic guitar, because apparently I thought I needed one. Because my guitar wasn't good enough for me anymore. I needed to upgrade. So I went out and I bought a legendary guitar. Okay. This guitar has been around. This guitar has seen some shit with me. And that is my trusty Beaver Creek acoustic guitar. 101 series. Very basic. Got a blue and black kind of sunburst fade finish. Such an awesome guitar. The neck on it's like perfect for me. I love the neck on it. Just a cheap guitar, but it sings. I love the guitar. Anytime someone hears it, they're like, man, like, any Beaver Creek I've ever played before sounds like crap, but yours sounds really good. And I'm like, they're mine's special. I've never played another Beaver Creek like mine. I don't know what it is about it. I mean, I've always taken really good care of it for the most part. It's got a lot of dings and hits, and unfortunately, quite a few years ago, before I knew a lot about humidity and stuff like that, it did get a few surface cracks. So that kind of sucks, but I take exceptionally good care of it now because it has major sentimental value to me. So I take very good care of that guitar. But anyone who knows me, who knew me in high school especially, they know that guitar. Lane, as I affectionately call him. It was the guitar I brought to high school every day, and it's my guitar I bring like anywhere, anytime I need to bring a guitar. It's always usually there in some capacity. So got a pickup installed in it, so now I can plug it in whenever I want and everything. And it's just it's a wicked guitar. I love that guitar to death. The episode 6 of the Harder Show, the talking bands episode, the couple little ditties I did talking about the riffs and that the guitar I was using was my BB Creek actually. So just kind of a funny little tidbit there. But so eventually I was playing and playing, and I was getting to be okay. I was learning a few chords, and I went, well, I need an electric guitar. I mean, don't get me wrong, acoustic guitar is really cool, but I need distortion, and I need to be able to play solos and everything. I mean, come on, I'm a guitar god. So I needed a Strat. So I decided I'm going to find me that Strat. Every great guitar player has a Strat, you know. I think everyone, when they start out guitar playing or at some point in their guitar playing journey, want a Strat, which is hilarious because I'm not a Strat guy anymore, but it is what it is. But so I needed to find myself a Strat, but it had to be a blue Strat. Okay, folks, if it wasn't a blue Strat, I didn't care. Okay, so I started looking around for one. My parents were not buying me any more guitars for a while, so I was like, oh, I gotta find one used, and I'm looking around, and there was a guy I was kind of acquaintances with in high school who had one, just a cheap Squire, and I was like, oh, cool, you know. And so he said, yeah, man, I got the Squire and I got this cheap amp with it. I think it was a Behringer amp. He's like, yeah, like I'll sell it to you for like $80. I was like, oh, absolutely, brother, you know, that's a good price. So I go and buy it off him, take it home, plug it into the amp, turn it on, and it sounds like shit. Which is hilarious. It just sounded like crap. It was nothing to do with the guitar or anything. It was just, you know, I figured there wouldn't be much difference between playing acoustic and electric, and there is a little bit. You know, I was just pressing on the strings really hard, and my acoustic guitars originally had medium gauge strings on them. So I'm playing the Strat with 9 gauges on it, extremely light strings, and oh, I just couldn't play the thing worth a flying shit. Oh, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad. I was getting really mad, and it was going out of tune really easily, which is normal for more cheaper guitars. And the amp just sounded like crap. I had a really small speaker that I think was actually blown. And I was like, oh, like, what the hell? What the hell? And I'm trying and trying. And right around this time was the time I started kind of jamming with Quarterstone, my quote-unquote high school band. You can go back and listen to Brandon's episode if you want to hear all about that, if you missed it. But I remember going over to my buddy's house, my buddy Garrett, and I went over with and I was all excited to have my electric guitar and my amp so I could jam with him while he played drums. And then the amp, it was probably a little 5-watter, and I'm playing along with him, and you can't hear shit because he's playing the drum set, and I'm playing a little 5-watt amp, and the guitar was so badly out of tune, and I couldn't get it to stay in tune no matter what I did. And you know, now knowing that what I do about guitars, the tremolo was lifted, so the springs needed to be tightened. Like the springs were off tension, so no matter what I did, that freaking guitar was not going to stay in tune. So, and I remember just like, he was like, man, it sounds like crap. And a bunch of my other buddies were there, and they all had like nicer new guitars, you know. And I'm like, oh, this is bullshit. And I was all pissed off. And I was like, that's it. I don't play electric guitar anymore. And I didn't play electric guitar for a little while. I sold that guitar, actually to the sister of the guy I bought it from. So that's kind of hilarious, actually, when you think about it. And so time went on, played, got a little bit better guitar, and then I decided I wanted to play guitar again because I'm just too good to not play electric guitar. So I went out with my buddy Brandon, and we're looking around music stores and looking around, and we go to Law McQuaid first. And my first experience at Law McQuaid was horrible. So we decided to check out Walter's Music, which was in the Oscar Center. Anyone who knows that store knows how awesome the guys were. And I went in there, and actually, it's also where I bought my Beaver Creek. Actually, I forgot to mention that. And the guy who helped me was the guy who helped me with my electric. So, but I went in there and looking around and looking around, and there was two guitars. One was a J Tertier Flying V, and then there was a J Tertier Explorer. And I was in love. You know, I was like, what kind of body style are those? And, you know, so I'm sitting there looking at them and looking at them, and I'm playing them both. And I decided I was going to go with the Flying V because I just love Flying Vs. I still love Flying Vs. Anyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with them. So I was like, I'm going to get the Flying V. And then I said to my buddy Brandon, he liked the Explorer. So I was like, well, then you can buy the Explorer and we'll like match, you know? And he's like, yeah, sick, you know? And for our band, you know, we can match. um, so I go back home and save up the money, and I come back a couple weeks later and the Flying V is gone. And I was heartbroken. Oh, that was my first letdown of guitars. I was just heartbroken. I was like, man, the first one that got away was that flying J Tertier Flying V. And so I went, okay. And actually, just a funny story about that J Tertier Flying V. Fast forward a few years to me working at gigs. And when we opened up in Bowenville, we had a J Tertier Flying V, the exact same style of one, sitting in there. So I always thought it was funny. My buddy Brandon was like, "Yo, you should buy it." So we had a Flying V and an Explorer. So it was always just the big joke that me and him are gonna buy these starter guitars, and just to say we have them, you know. But so back to the story. I was at Wilson and Lee's. Sorry. So I was at Walters, and I'm all bummed out because the Flying V's gone, and the sales guy there, Jordan was his name. I'll never forget him. Awesome guy. He said, "Well, man, like, do you prefer, like, what kind of guitar playing do you prefer?" I said, "Oh, well, like, I play rhythm." He's like, "Oh, like, how about an Explorer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like, I do like the Explorer." He's like, "Yeah, like James Hetfield plays an Explorer." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, like sick. He's like the coolest guitar player ever," you know, being a kid. Not saying that James Hetfield wasn't the coolest guitar player ever. Don't get me wrong. I love James Hetfield to death. He's one of my favorite rhythm guys. But now knowing that it was kind of a sales pitch, but it is what it is. So I sit down and play the Explorer, and I go, you know what? Yeah, this is fine. And so I bought that guitar and took it home, and I had that guitar for years. And in some capacity, it was always around. I think I ended up selling it to my buddy Brandon eventually. He played it for a little while, and then he didn't want it, and he was going to sell it. And I'm like, well, I'll buy it back from you. And I ended up selling that on Kijiji for like $50 because it was just in really bad shape and needed a lot of work. And I regret selling that guitar to this day. There's 3 guitars I've sold that I like super, super regret selling, and that was one. Just because it was the first real, like, legit decent guitar I had, you know. Just an awesome, awesome guitar. The J Tertier stuff is wicked. I recommend it to anyone, especially if you can pick one up cheap. Really good stuff. So I had my Explorer, and I'm playing around with it and stuff, and about a year goes by, and I was at Wilson and Lee's in Oshawa one time. Awesome, awesome store. I love those guys. And they had a guitar sitting there. Just little Hagstrom Ultra Swede. And the Hagstrom stuff is wicked. I love it. And I'm sitting there playing this little Hagstrom. I say little just because it was like their Swede style guitar, like the Les Paul shape, but it was just a little bit small, a little bit thinner. And I really dug that guitar. It was a sick guitar. Definitely the body's a little small for me, of being a bigger guy. It's something I didn't really think about. But I ended up putting it on layaway like that day. I loved that guitar to death. And I'm like, oh, I need a couple guitars for tunings, right? You know? So I ended up putting that guitar on layaway. And it was sitting there for a couple months. And then it was going to be well after Christmas that I could pay it off. So I was all bummed out about that. But I was like, whatever, it'll still be there. So I Christmas morning comes that year. I come out and I'm sitting there opening presents and stuff, and there's this big box. I'm like, what the hell is in here? And I open it up, and it was a case, a guitar case. I'm like, oh my god, and I open it up, and there's no guitar in it. I was just excited to have the case, to be honest with you. Like, I really was. Like, I was like, oh, like, this is like, it was a really nice case. And I was like, oh, this is probably like a $200 case. Like, I just need to go finish paying off the guitar, and this is great. And my mom and dad are laughing, and my dad gets up. I gotta go to the bathroom. And then he comes back a couple minutes later, and I have my back to him. And he says, oh, see if this fits. And I turn around, and he's got the fucking guitar in his hand. And he's just smirking, and my mom's laughing. And oh, it was just like, it was the best. I was ecstatic. I played that guitar. That day, that guitar did not leave my hands. I played that guitar all friggin' day. And wicked guitar. I love the Hagstrom stuff. Unfortunately, that guitar, I kind of lost touch with it. I had it, I had sold it for some stupid reason. I have no idea why I did. I was a young, stupid, naive kid. I regret that to this day. My intentions was I was going to sell it and buy it back. 'Twas my intentions. And unfortunately, when I sold it, someone bought it. The day I sold it, it was, one of those deals where I needed like a couple $100 that day for something before I got paid, and I sold it, and then went to go get it back the next day, and it was gone. So that sucked ass. I really, really, really wish I had that guitar now. So kind of crappy, but is how it goes sometimes in the guitar world. So another couple months went by. I was getting more into the band thing and everything, and during this time, I became absolutely obsessed with PRS guitars. I still love their stuff. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with them anymore, but at this point, I was literally completely obsessed with them. Like, ask any of my buddies. I was just PRS this and PRS that, and so one day we are in Hands On Music in Bowenville. Awesome store, great guys. And I walk in, I'm looking around, and they have this friggin' PRS SE semi-hollow. If you guys aren't familiar with the semi-hollow, basically, it's the regular solid body, but then there's a little cut out of it, kind of like an F-hole, but it wasn't like an F-hole, it was kind of like a rectangular, nice cut, and so it did give it that somewhat semi-hollow feel, but it still was nice and chunky, but it had soap bar pickups in it, and I didn't really understand what soap bar pickups were at the time. I plugged it into a really nice amp, and I was playing it, and it sounded killer. I fell in love with it playing it acoustically first. Like, I didn't plug it in, and I was like, I need this guitar. Like, I don't care how it sounds plugged in. This guitar is so comfortable. I need it. So I ended up putting it on layaway, and went back a couple months later, bought it, took it home, and realized very, very, very quickly that this guitar is not for me. At the time, I was trying to play, heavier rock and alternative metal and stuff like that, and tune down and stuff. And with soap bar pickups, it just does not work. Soap bar pickups are awesome. I love soap bar pickups for certain stuff. If I'm playing rock or classic rock or trying to get nice, creamy, clean tones, or lead sounded awesome on the guitar. But it was so bright and punchy. When you would tune it down, it almost sounded almost too bright. If that makes sense. So I was like, oh, I really love the feel of this guitar, but it just can't do what I needed to do. So I was gonna get new pickups put in it. I took it into, I think it was Hands On, and the guy was like, well, we're gonna have to red it out because regular humbuckers won't fit in it unless we get like these certain style and everything. And I was like, screw it. So I decided I was gonna sell it and try and find another PRS, because I was like, I need to be a PRS guy, I'm gonna get endorsed by PRS. It's gonna be great. So that's how I thought back then. But so I Started looking around for another PRS because I was like, I'm sold on PRS. It's the guitars I'm gonna play. I walked into Lon McQuade a few days later, actually a few weeks later, and they had this awesome PRS SE single cut sitting there, and it was just sick. Oh, it was a nice guitar. Was the orange tiger eye finish, really sick. Beautiful neck, humbucker pickups. I plugged that thing in and it just screamed. It was awesome. And so I went up to the counter and I said, "Yeah, I want to trade this, which was my SE, the semi hollow, in for that." And now looking back, it pretty much should have been a straight trade. I had the receipt and everything from the store when I bought it, and I bought it in another store, but that was a $500 guitar, and the SC single cut was a $500 guitar. So kind of funny that I think they ended up giving me like a buck 50 for that friggin' soap bar guitar. Maybe a little more than that, but it was definitely $200 or under. So I had to pay a $200 difference or so, or $300 on the custom, which looking back is not cool. I'm just kind of realizing that now that's not cool, and I'm really pissed off at them right now. But that is what it is. So I end up getting the single cut, take that guy home, and I loved that freaking guitar, man. That guitar was sick. It was so lightweight. Just a wicked guitar. And I played the shit out of that guitar. And as time went on, I decided I wanted to start a just strictly metal band. So I was like, oh, like I need like a metal guitar, you know. I sold my Explorer and by this point and everything, so I ended up trading the worst trade I've ever done, and I kick myself in the ass to this for this day. I was just naive. I didn't know what stuff was worth. I had just bought a Line 6 Spider tube, real tube amp, and I didn't really understand tube amps. I didn't understand that they were substantially louder than solid steps. So I turned it on at like 1 in my house and it would just shake my house. Like it was way too loud for the situation I was in. So I was like, well, I paid $400 for this stupid thing. I'm going to have to get rid of it. So I'm on Kijiji one day and I see a red Jackson King V for sale. And I go, oh, like that's sick, a Jackson. And thinking, Jackson is the supreme metal company and everything. And not that Jackson aren't nice guitars. I like Jacksons, but in my opinion, they're not the best metal guitars. But that is what it is. So I say to the guy, hey, how much you want for it? He's like, a couple $100. Good price. I'm like, cool, And I say, well, I have something to trade you for it. He said, yeah, sure. What is it? And it was my tube amp. And he goes, yeah, sure. So me thinking, oh, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I go and trade the guy. His cheap Jackson King V. It was a cheaper one. His cheap Jackson King V for my friggin' Spider tube amp. Now, it did have a really nice hard shell case, and I think he threw in a couple cables, and I think he threw in like a cheap distortion pedal or something too. I think he felt bad because he knew he was kind of ripping me off, but he still didn't feel bad enough to not say anything. So, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think I would have said anything either at the time. So, did the swap, took it home, immediately tuned it to drop C, played the crap out of it for a while. And then I realized very quickly that I need a baritone guitar. Just because I was like, I need a baritone. I need to tune down lower than drop C. I was really into Stained and bands like that tune down. So I was like, I need something to tune down. So I went into Lon McQuade, and right around that time, Mike Mashock from Stained had just come up with a Silver Burst baritone. And I went, holy shit, I need that. So I ended up trading in my PRS single cut for the that and the Jackson. I did kind of a trade in on both of them, towards the baritone, and ended up bringing that home. And it was a friggin' monster. I friggin' loved that guitar to death. Out of all the guitars I sold, I missed that one the most because it was such a wicked guitar. Just that thing was a beast. Ended up getting Steve from Gigs Music there, the old store. Got him to put the Spurgel locking tuners on it, and that friggin' thing never went out of tune. And I tuned that thing all anywhere from full 6 steps down at E, all the way up to drop A, back down to friggin' full tone down E, drop B, sometimes up to drop C. Then I'd tune it back down to drop B flat, B standard, like just all over the place with it. All different sorts of different gauges strings, and that thing never went out of tune. The neck was always perfect on it. And unfortunately, I ended up having to sell that guitar for financial reasons. When I first started working at gigs part-time, unfortunately, didn't make a whole lot of money because I was working part-time. Fortunately, didn't make a lot of time because Fortunately, I didn't make a lot of money because I was working part-time. No one's fault or anything. Just, I was working 1-2 days a week. So I sold a bunch of gear I had. And I ended up selling that guitar. It was the last guitar I had left. And I was like, I needed like $400 for something. I think it was like my car payment. And I think I needed something fixed on my truck. And I was like, crap, So I ended up selling it to a older gentleman who was going to use it for his studio or whatever. And the day I sold him that guitar, I mean, he was walking away with it. And I'm standing there, and there's like a tear running down my face. Like, I did not want to sell a guitar, and financially, like, I had no choice. And he turned around, and he kind of looked at me, and he's like, "You don't want to sell this, do you?" And I'm like, no, I don't. But I'm like, I have no choice. He's like, I get it. He says, I'll tell you what. Here's my email. Here's my card. If you ever want this guitar back, give me a call, man. Like, he's like, I can tell you've taken care of it. I can tell you're a good guy. You just, you need the money. She's like, you ever want this guitar back, give me a call. And if I have no use for it at the time, he's like, maybe I'll think about selling it back to you. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. So, unfortunately, the story with that is when I called him, it was sold. He gave me the number of the guy he sold it to, and I chased it, and he gave me the email of the guy he sold it to, and I chased it through like 6 or 7 people and ended up losing touch with it. So, unfortunately, that is the last one that got away, but that I sold. But here's what it is. Still miss it. So, at this point, I had my 2 acoustic guitars. I still had my baritone. What I'm doing is just kind of telling the stories of what happened to the guitars as I'm talking about those guitars. So if it gets a little confusing, I apologize. But at this point in my guitar list here, I still did have my baritone when I purchased this next guitar. So I had my 2 acoustics, like I said, my baritone, but I didn't have a normal electric guitar. And at this point, with the quote-unquote band or bands, I was like, well, I need a guitar to tune somewhat standard tuning, like half step or something. And I walked into Gigs Music and talking to Rob, saying I need something that's like really, that can do kind of like acoustic-y, clean stuff as well as go heavy. And he said, you ever checked out like a full semi-hollow guitar? Not a hollow body, not like the one I had before, but one that's a little bit more hollow. And I said, no. He said, well, check this out. He pulls down a Cort M800 semi-hollow. And that thing was friggin' sweet. 2 F-holes in it, 2 really powerful humbuckers, just a wicked guitar. Really nice neck on it. Played like a friggin' dream. I was playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it. And it was like a $800 guitar, you know. It wasn't really nice woods and everything. And I'm playing it and going like, this is it, you know. It had a push pull pot as well. So for those of you who don't know, basically, if you have a standard style humbucker pickup, which is more for like kind of your rock and metal and stuff, and then you have your single coil pickups, which is kind of gives you more of a twangier sound. And this guitar had both of them together. So I was like, dude, like this is perfect. And then it had a really nice sound acoustically as well. So I was like, that's it, I'll take it. And I think Rob knocked a couple $100 off the price for me. It was an older guitar, so I got it for a steal. And then Steve had said he could put a piezo pickup in it for me under the bridge, and I was like, oh, sick. So it was going to be like this big project guitar that was going to be awesome, and took it home, and unfortunately, due to financial troubles, I did have to sell that guitar as well. I sold it for next to nothing. I remember when I sold it, the guy was like, this is worth like probably $600. You're selling it for like 400. I was like, I got no choice. So unfortunately, I sold that as well because I had bought in too many guitars and I bought in too many amps and was spending my money on stupid shit. The second that I actually needed money for real life stuff, had to sell some of my toys. So the M800 was one to go, and I was left with my SE baritone and my two acoustics once again. So I was like, man, like what am I gonna do now? So a few months went by. Jamming with buddies still, and at this point, we were getting into playing our more proggy stuff and a little more serious about it. So I figured, you know what, it's time for me to buy. I need two guitars. Two more guitars. I need one for baritone. I need one for somewhat standard style, and then one for kind of in between. So I, at this point, my buddy Brandon, he was playing his Dean guitars. He had his Dean Saltero. So I went, man, like, I need to buy a Dean guitar. And I was on Kijiji one day, and I saw a Dean VX white for $100. I messaged the guy and I said, sold, I'll come get it tomorrow. So me and my buddy drove up to, I want to say it was Scarborough to pick it up, and went home that day and I plugged it in, and it was, to this day, one of the best guitars I've ever owned. I still have it. I did kind of lose touch with it for a little bit, but I got it back last year, so pretty wicked. I'm looking at it right now. Really glad I have that guitar because it is wicked. Really basic, cheaper guitar, but it has upgraded pickups, so two Seymour Duncan distortion, and then a 59 in the neck. So I haven't really been going into a lot of detail as far as the parts of the guitars and the woods and stuff like that, just because this would be a two-parter if I did that. So I'm just kind of have been trying to rush through this and talk about some guitars, but that VX still is one of the best guitars I've ever owned and ever played. Just something about it. And I've played other Dean VXs, and they're not as good as this one. So I don't know what it is about my luck with guitars, but I seem to have good luck. So I had one of my cool guitars. I had a matching Dean guitar with my buddy, and it was going to be my standard tune guitar. So I was like, oh, like now I just need a guitar that's for like more like the, basically we played in half step, drop C, and then a couple songs we played like baritone. So I needed a drop C guitar. And I walked in, I was looking around for all these guitars, and I started to get really bummed out. And I walked into Gigs Music in Coburg, and Steve was behind the counter, and he says, ah, dude, what's up? You look a little glum. And I'm like, like, I just can't find a guitar that's right for me. Like, I'm pissed off, you know? It's annoying. And he says, you ever tried the ESP stuff? And I hadn't, because I was like, oh, like, they're strictly metal guitars. Like, they're for shredders and stuff. And he's like, no. So he comes over and grabs an ESP LTD EC1000 in the vintage black finish, the famous EC1000, that famous black kind of gold satin finish. And I sat down and played that thing for about 20 minutes, and I was in love. I loved everything about it except the finish. I do not like satin finish guitars. I hate them. So I was like, this is great, but I don't like the way it looks and feels just because of the finish. So he's like, well, over in our Port Hope store, we have another one. Why don't you go check it out and go see Rob? So, all right, cool. So I go in. I walk in the door of the Coburg store, the Port Hope store. And Rob's on the phone, actually. He waves at me, hey, what's up, buddy? And he says, I'll be right with you, you know. And he knew, like, at that point, I'd hung out at a gig so much, he knew who I was anyway and everything. So I walk in and I kind of look to my right on the wall. And hitting the guitar just perfectly was these lights he had up. And this guitar looked like it was sent down from the heavens at this point, okay? It was another EC1000 in a silver burst finish. Now, anyone who knows the guitar I'm talking about, it's my guitar. Like, it is my, as far as electric guitars are concerned, Lane is my favorite acoustic, my ultimate acoustic. And this guitar, the General, I call it, is my my main electric. And this friggin' thing is a beast. Ebony fretboard, solid mahogany body, solid mahogany neck, EMG 81 and 60, locking ESP tuners. It's a monster. I looked at it and I went, that's it. Because I had my baritone at the time still, and it had a silver burst finish as well. So I went, my guitars are going to match. Like, holy shit, that's awesome. So I decided right then and there, that's it, I'm buying it. I plugged it in and it sounded even better than the other one did, and I went, Rob, I'll take it. So I had it on layaway for like 6 or 7 months, which is not supposed to happen, but luckily Rob is a great dude, and he knew that I was going to eventually buy it. This money was a little tight. I don't think it was actually 6 or 7 months. It was probably more like 4, but the day I went in to buy that guitar, I was pumped. I had Steve do a really good setup on it, install strap locks and everything, and ever since then, that guitar has been a beast. I've never even remotely thought about selling it. It's been the one constant for guitars other than my acoustic. And to this day, ESP and the LTD stuff, like, it's still my favorite guitars. I love their stuff. Done a lot with it over the years as far as different strings, and when I got it, it was set up for standard style, so I had Steve put some heavier strings on it and set it up for drop C, and it's a monster, you know. Just a wicked guitar. The EC1000s are phenomenal freaking guitars. Like, I can't recommend them enough. Just awesome stuff. At this point, I ended up a few months after fast forward about a few months, I ended up buying another cheaper EC. It was like the EC 256, aged vintage black. Really awesome guitar. I had it for like maybe a month. It was a wicked guitar, but just there was something about it I didn't like. It was a satin finish. And I just said earlier, I hate satin finishes. I don't know why I bought it. Kind of an impulse buy, but still a cool guitar. But I highly recommend those 256s. They're a great bang for your buck, but it was not for me. So I sold that pretty quick. Fast forward a couple years, and I met Sam and everything, and kind of slowed down a little bit with the music before I met Sam. And kind of right around the time I met her, I decided I wanted to just try my hand at like kind of solo acoustic music. So I figured I'd need an acoustic with a built-in pickup, cutaway, all that kind of shit, you know. And I wanted to stick with ESP. And right around this time, they started making acoustics. So I go into Gigs Music, order myself one of the AC10s, which were really awesome guitars. Um, got it, played great, sounded great, had a really nice pickup. Still a very basic acoustic guitar for the most part. It was about a $230 guitar, but to me it was wicked. So I had that guitar for a little while. Unfortunately, financial troubles, had to sell it. And after that, I didn't have a new guitar for a long time. The only guitars I had for a long, long time was my two acoustic guitars, my Beaver Creek and my Ashbury, and then my LTD EC1000. I sold my V. I sold everything. I had barely anything left. I sold all my pedals and a couple amps that I had, and didn't buy a new guitar for a long time. And the last guitar I purchased was actually somewhat recently. Well, I say somewhat recently. It's probably been like almost a year. But guy came into the store one day with a guitar I'd never seen before. It was an Ibanez, but it was a people who are familiar with the Ibanez, they have the SZ guitars, which are like kind of their double cutaway, almost like a cross between like a Les Paul and a PRS kind of deal. But like really nice, chunky, good wood and everything. And it was like a cheap version of that, like a Geo version, all in black. Just, kind of cool looking guitar. It was in really rough shape when he brought it in. He said, "Hey man, I want to get rid of this guitar." And I looked at it and I went, "Man, like this is not worth my time to buy for the store. Like it's just, I buy this thing for, $50, put $100 into it basically of time, and then I got to sell it for like almost $250 just to make a profit, $200. So I said, "Hey man, it's not really worth my time." He was getting ready to leave, and I was looking at it. I kind of played it a little bit. The strings on it were like 5 or 6 years old. The neck was bowed to shit. One of the pickups wasn't even like installed. The tone pot was shot. One of the tuners was messed up, and I went, "I'll take it." And I handed him $50 I had in my pocket, and I just said, "So, are you okay with that?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I was gonna put on a GG anyway, so I gave him $50 cash, and on my own time, I fixed it up. It didn't need necessarily any parts, just the labor it would have cost me while I'm getting paid at the store to fix this guitar. I would have had to have sold it for more, so it wasn't worth it. But for me personally to buy it and fix it myself on my own time, it was well worth it. And I still have that guitar, and it is awesome. It is my kind of my beater guitar in the sense of I tune it all over the place and put all different types of strings on it. But it is wicked. It is just a really cool guitar. If you guys ever see these guitars kicking around, they are available in a couple different colors. They didn't make them for very long. I'm not sure why. I guess they didn't sell very well, but it's the N427 is the model number for this, and it's a Geo Ibanez, and just really wicked guitar. And that was the last new guitar I bought. So just quickly too about basses. I've only had 3 basses ever. So one was a cheap Behringer bass I bought, figuring that I'd need to be the bass player and guitar player of my band at the same time. So I bought a cheap Behringer bass that barely worked. Then after that, I had a really nice Ibanez Geo SR. Really, really nice bass. Just, black finish, really basic, but wicked guitar. The Ibanez like sound gear stuff, the Geo stuff is so wicked. If anyone ever needs like a cheap beater bass, you can never go wrong with those things, man. They are wicked as hell. And the bass I have right now is a broken bass. It is just completely shot, and any Regular customers of the store will recognize it. It is a Traben bass, a Traben Phoenix bass, just the cheap version with the bolt-on neck. Really wicked bass. It's got a great neck on it. It plays great and sounds great, but the problem is the neck is warped. So when we bought it, the neck was not warped. But unfortunately, as we had it for a couple of years, at some point the neck did warp. We're not really sure how. The store was always humidity controlled and everything, so I don't know what the heck happened there, but something that probably was going to happen to it. It did show signs of it warping when I bought it, but kind of being naive, I didn't really think anything of it. Not really knowing what signs to look for. I didn't know a lot at the time about warping necks and that. Now I know. But after it started showing signs of warping, we weren't selling it. I put it behind the counter and just went, nope, like that's it. So it was kicking around. We tried to sell it for parts and just it didn't work. And it wound up in the storage unit when the gigs closed. And last time I saw my old boss, Rob, it was sitting there at his house and he was going to try and fix it. And he's just like, I don't have time for this. And he's just like, dude, do you want it? I was like, sure. So it's sitting here and eventually I am going to fix it. But no idea when that's going to be. But eventually I am going to. So those are all the guitars I've had over the course of the last few years. I did not go into amps or pedals or anything. That's probably going to have to be another podcast because I'm going to go for probably another hour if I talk about those. But kind of recapping on the guitars I currently have, just for people who may have lost it there because I was kind of been all over the place with this. I have my two trusty acoustic guitars, my Ashbury and my Beaver Creek. I have my Traben bass. I have my Dean VX. I have my Ibanez GON 427. And then last but not least, I have my awesome ESP LTD EC 1000. So I've got a great kind of guitar boat here. No complaints at all. Obviously, there's guitars I still want and everything, but that is what it is. So just kind of ending off this podcast here, talking about guitars. I figured I'd tell just a couple quick stories about the guitars that got away. More guitars that got away. One of which was an Ibanez SZ, which is similar to the black one I have, but it's like the nicer version of it. And it was a blue one, and it was at Long McQuaid, and I really, really wanted it. Played the crap out of it. Ended up going back to put it on layaway, and it was gone. So that's shitty. All guitar players have a story like that about the guitar that got away. So kind of funny how that happens. But the next one, it was a doozy. The most expensive guitar I've ever wanted to buy. And it was a PRS Dragon 2. With the Dragon 2 pickups and everything. Like just a wicked guitar. It was custom 24. Oh my god, that guitar was amazing. Whale blue finish. It was perfect. Like perfect. Exactly the kind of PRS I wanted. And the day I was going to finance it, my parents said, okay. They're like, we'd rather you not, obviously, but you're going to anyway. So the day I went in to go finance it, it was gone. I was pissed. It was a good deal too for the guitar. It was like a $1,500 guitar, so it was really, really nice. I'm still to this day bummed about that. And there was a cheap vintage guitar that we had at the store that was just this cheap kind of piece of crap, and it freaking played amazing. I have no idea why. To this day, I don't know what it was about it that drew me to it, but it was wicked. And unfortunately, the guitar sold when I wasn't at the store. So, I was thinking about buying it, but I was like, I can't really afford it right now and everything. But it is what it is. One that got away. And the last one here I'm going to end this off with is a doozy. There's a bit of a story to this one. It's a very special guitar, and the one I'm most angry about that it got away. And once I tell the story, you'll understand. And this guitar, the story starts at gigs. So, gigs in Bonneville, we weren't an ESP dealer the entire time we were there, but it was about a couple years in. My first year working full time, I convinced Rob to be an ESP dealer again. And one of the ones that we got in when we were sitting kind of looking through the catalog of what we wanted, there was an EC401, which is kind of the mid-level. It's not quite the deluxe. It's not made in Korea. It was made in China, I think, but still really wicked guitar. Still a $600 guitar, It had the EMGs and everything, and really nice guitar. And it had this like blue black burst finish. It basically matched my LTD I have now, but it was blue instead of silver. So I love my black and blue. Like I was in love with it, and I said to him, like it would be so sick to get that guitar. And so come the day that we get our shipment, we're opening up all the guitar boxes, and that guitar was in it. And I started freaking out because I'm like, you dick, like he ordered it, right? And he's like, well, that way if you want it, it's here. So I was like, shit. So we had that guitar for a few months. I played it all the time. Oh my God. Any chance I got to play it, I'd sit down to tune it and I'd play it for like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, God. I got to put it back, and I kept it like super clean. I tried to keep all the guitars clean and set up and everything as best I could, but that guitar was always pristine. So I threw around the idea of buying it for a while, and my boss said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, obviously I did get a bit of a discount because I was an employee, but he said, we'll put it on layaway, and you can basically just keep it on as long as you need to till you pay it off. And I was like, that's so awesome. So I was like, all right, it's Friday. I'm going to come in on Saturday and buy it. That was what was going to happen. So Friday morning I get up, and I had a part-timer working at the store at the time. And I called him up. I said, hey man, I'm going to be stopping by to pick up my guitar. I had told him a couple days before about it, right? So he's like, yeah, okay, cool, no problem. I said, keep it behind the counter. So I dillied down a little bit, and an hour or two later, I head down to the store. And guess what? The guitar's gone. He sold it in the 2 hours that it basically took me from when I called him to when I actually kind of stopped dilly-dallying and left. And he said, I literally sold it 15 minutes ago. I said, dude, I told you not to sell it. Did you put it behind the counter? He's like, well, yeah, but a guy wanted to play it. And the guy was like, well, I want to pay full price for it. Because there's like, oh, well, it's sold. And he's just like, so the guy basically convinced him to sell it to him. Because he's like, well, is it still in the system? Yeah, it's not on layaway. Well, technically no. Then he's like, well, then sell it to me. So I was not happy. I was pissed right off. Oh, I was so mad. I'm still mad about it to this day. Just because that guitar was so awesome. I wish I had it, but it was one that got away, unfortunately. I can laugh about it now, so it's all good. I mean, in reality, I did not need that guitar. I just wanted it, So, talk's a good thing that I didn't end up buying it because financially just didn't need it. So, funny how that goes. Like I said, everyone always has stories of ones that got away and everything. So, I would love to hear your guys' stories about guitars that got away or basses or gear that got away. I always love hearing stories like that. I always love talking gear. I'll talk about lots of different stuff on the podcast, but deep down in my heart, music is like one of my number one passions. So I always love talking music. I love talking gear. Anytime you guys want to talk gear, shoot me a message, shoot me a tweet, shoot me an email. You can always email me. Anything like that. Comment on the video right now. Just tell me your stories. Talk about ones that got away. Tell me about your current guitars and your rig and everything. I love hearing about that kind of stuff. So anytime I have musicians on the podcast, we'll definitely talk about rigs a little bit. But with that, guys, I'm going to just get ready to sign off here. Hope that you guys enjoyed kind of this music-themed week of podcasts from The Harder Show. Hope you guys enjoyed this gear talk today. I know I did. Love talking about my guitars. So, like I said, definitely remember to shoot me a message or anything like that. If you guys have anything you want to talk about gear-related, be sure to share this with all your musician buddies. They may get a kick out of it. And thank you so much again for tuning in and clicking that play button. We will catch you guys next time on The Harder Show. Thanks so much.